Such is the case again with Dances with Wolves. It's a movie that nobody really wanted to make. It's a period piece. It's set 150 years ago. It's about Indians and about the way they lived. It's images of running horses, and that seems to be a bit of a snooze for people, or they can't immediately put their finger on it. Mm-hmm. For me, I love those images, and I think that they can translate into a great movie experience.
When Dances with Wolves premiered in 1990, it stunned audiences and critics alike. The film won 7 Academy Awards, became a box office hit, and helped change how Westerns were made. But behind the sweeping planes and carefully crafted story was a secret Kevin Costner kept hidden during productions. In recent interviews, he's revealed just how uncertain he was about the film's future and how much of a personal risk he took to make it happen. The secret Kevin Costner kept: his doubts and determination. At the heart of Dances with Wolves is a man alone, trying to understand a world he's never known. That same feeling echoed behind the scenes, where Kevin Costner quietly carried the weight of a production he feared might fall apart. In a recent interview, Costner admitted, quote, "I was afraid the movie wouldn't work. I didn't share that much, but I was really frightened." For all the confidence he showed in taking on multiple roles, director, producer, and star, Costner was deeply unsure whether the film would be accepted or understood. The story, adapted from Michael Blake's novel, wasn't what studios were looking for. Westerns were considered outdated, and the idea of a slow-paced film with subtitles and an Indigenous-centered narrative felt risky. But Costner believed in it enough to push forward. What he didn't show at the time was how much of a mental toll it was taking. "You feel alone out there," he said, describing the pressures of carrying a vision that few others believed in. Still, he kept that fear to himself, showing a calm exterior to his cast and crew while holding back private doubts about whether the entire thing might collapse. Costner's decision to keep his worry hidden wasn't just about pride, it was about leadership. He knew that if the crew sensed uncertainty, the whole production might unravel. Instead, he pressed on, trusting that the film's message would come through. His silence wasn't false confidence, it was quiet determination to protect the fragile thing they were building. The risk was real, but so was the reward. Years later, that secret fear only adds to the depth of what Dances with Wolves became. Why he directed it himself. Kevin Costner didn't set out to direct Dances with Wolves. In fact, he hoped someone else would take the reins. But as the project moved forward, it became clear no one shared his vision for how the film could be made. He eventually stepped into the director's chair not out of ambition, but out of necessity. Quote, "There were a lot of people who didn't want to do the movie the way I saw it," he said. "I realized I had to do it myself or it wasn't going to happen." That decision came with enormous pressure. Costner was already taking a risk by producing and starring in a film that defied Hollywood norms. By adding director to his list of responsibilities, he exposed himself to even more criticism if the project failed. But he believed in the story and was determined to protect its tone, pacing, and cultural sensitivity. He didn't want to water it down or force it into something more traditionally commercial.
But I didn't give myself a lot of takes. I gave everybody else in the movies a lot of takes, and I feel like I rushed myself all the time because I was just moving to something else, and I was thinking, okay, I'll be all right, I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't really give myself, I think, enough time.
Costner's approach was unorthodox. He allowed long, quiet scenes to unfold naturally. He gave time to the Lakota language and culture. He trusted the story to breathe, even if it tested audience patience. Directing the film gave him full control over these choices, and he didn't take that lightly. "I wasn't trying to show people how to do it," he recalled. "I was just trying to do it the way I thought it needed to be done." In doing so, he turned a passion project into one of the most celebrated films of the decade. The struggles to get it made.
Yeah, I suppose when you get so close to it, when you're not only acting in it, but you're directing it and co-produced, until you put it all together, I suppose you really don't know what you have, do you?
No, you have to wait. You have to wait for people to giggle or boo, and
I know the feeling.
Long before the cameras rolled, Dances with Wolves faced rejection from nearly every major studio. Kevin Costner's vision didn't align with what executives believed audiences wanted in 1990. The script was too long, the story too quiet, it had subtitles, and an Indigenous-centered plot, which studios found risky. According to Costner, quote, "Nobody wanted to make it. They didn't think anyone would sit through a 3-hour Western with Native Americans speaking their own language. To get the film off the ground, he had to bet on himself, financially and creatively. Costner ended up putting in millions of his own money to keep production going. He worked with producer Jim Wilson to secure financing independently, which gave them creative freedom but added enormous personal risk. As delays piled up and costs rose, Costner's involvement became more than a passion project, it became a test of endurance. Many doubted him, some even mocked him for thinking he could pull it off. He didn't just have to make a movie, he had to prove he wasn't chasing a vanity project. At one point, there were fears that the project would collapse entirely, but Costner pushed forward, convinced that the story deserved to be told without compromise. He never gave in to pressure to trim the running time or swap out the Lakota dialogue for English. The choices that made the film hard to finance were the same ones that made it powerful. Costner's stubborn belief in the material wasn't always popular, but it's what carried the film through. Looking back, he has said, quote, "If it had failed, it would have been my fault, but at least it would have failed being what I believed it should be." The infamous buffalo scene. Of all the unforgettable moments in Dances with Wolves, the buffalo hunt stands out as one of the most difficult and dangerous scenes ever produced. It involved real animals, unpredictable movement, and dozens of crew members on the ground and on horseback. For Kevin Costner, the sequence became a test of both his physical endurance and directorial nerve. He later described it as chaotic and borderline out of control, recalling the sheer scale and risk involved in pulling it off. The production used over 3,000 buffalo, many of them wild. Filming the stampede required precise coordination and perfect timing. One of the biggest challenges was getting the animals to run in the right direction. At one point, the crew used a truck with a large bison head attached to the front to lure the herd across the camera's path. Costner later admitted that the scene was far more dangerous than audiences would ever guess. Quote, "A guy nearly got killed," he said. "A buffalo missed him by inches. You can't fake that kind of power." Costner did many of his own stunts, riding at full speed alongside the stampede. He knew how important the sequence was to the story. It captured the relationship between the Sioux and the land, the fading connection to a way of life. The risks were worth it, but that didn't make them any less terrifying. Quote, "It could have gone so wrong in so many ways," he said. "The fact that it worked, and that it worked so well, remains one of the film's great achievements." Working with Indigenous actors and language. One of the most groundbreaking choices Kevin Costner made on Dances with Wolves was his insistence on authenticity when portraying Native American life. At a time when Hollywood often used white actors in makeup to play Indigenous roles, Costner committed to casting Native actors and incorporating the Lakota language into the film. It wasn't just a stylistic decision, it was a statement. He wanted the film to show respect for the people it was portraying, and that meant taking the time to get things right. Costner worked closely with cultural advisors and language coaches to make sure the Lakota dialogue was accurate and delivered properly. Quote, "We had to be respectful," he said. "If we were going to show this way of life, we had to do it honestly." That commitment meant more rehearsal, more takes, and more effort from everyone involved, but it paid off. Let us know in the comment section below.